Tonight at about 7:44 p.m., we began to receive reports of a red sedan that was traveling wrong way on westbound Interstate 10 from Sky Harbor. About 3 minutes later, we received reports. In fact, our troopers actually arrived on scene of a collision right here on the southbound 51 to I-10 eastbound transition. What we know right now is that red car traveled westbound on Interstate 10 and continued to transition onto the northbound 51 transition, where it struck a white vehicle. That vehicle then in turn struck a third vehicle, also another white sedan. Right now we have both drivers of the two initial collisions that are deceased. A third driver of that third vehicle is in the hospital. He is being checked out. Our troopers are right now, they're investigating. They're taking measurements. We have fire here, and we'll be cleaning up the scene, but we'll probably be here for another 3 or so hours until everything is completely cleared from the scene. So I know this can be a little confusing with the transition, so let me say this again. At 7:44 p.m., our troopers began to receive reports of a red sedan traveling westbound on Interstate 10 in the eastbound lanes. That vehicle continued to transition onto the 51 in the wrong direction, where it struck a white sedan that was traveling and transitioning from southbound 51 to eastbound I-10, where they collided. That collision caused another vehicle to hit them. And again, the driver of that third vehicle is going to be okay. He was transported to the hospital. Unfortunately, the driver of our red sedan, the wrong way vehicle, who is a male, is deceased. And the driver of the first white sedan that was struck, also a male, is deceased on scene.
So, do you know, were they in the HOV lane?
So the red sedan transitioned from westbound I-10 onto where you would transition to the eastbound I-10 from southbound 51. Okay, so I know that can be kind of confusing.
So he had got across 4 lanes of traffic on I-10 to come north on southbound.
So he entered from Sky Harbor onto westbound I-10 in the wrong direction, traveled in the wrong direction, and began to transition onto northbound 51 in the southbound lanes, where he struck the vehicle that was trying to transition to the eastbound I-10 from southbound 51.
This was a head-on collision?
The initial collision was a head-on collision. The white car that was traveling in the correct direction, there was a second white car right behind it that tried to avoid that initial collision, and he was unable to swerve out of the way, I guess is the best way to put it, and he was also hit. But that driver is going to be okay. The two drivers of the initial collision, the red wrong way sedan and the white car, are both deceased on scene.
How could a driver go that far in the wrong direction?
You know, so we received the initial reports at 7:44 p.m. Our troopers arrived in the area about 3 minutes later, approximately. It happens quickly. You know, people are thinking they're driving the correct direction, they're driving at freeway speeds, and they can travel a long distance in a short amount of time.
There were reports that the red sedan was seen swerving before the crash. I mean, I know it's super early, but any indication as to whether or not they were trying to correct themselves, maybe they were impaired, or what may have led to that?
We don't, like I said, we don't have any of that. It is initial, like you stated before. We are going to look into that. We're getting some help from Sky Harbor, in fact, because this vehicle did leave the airport in the wrong direction, and that's where this all started. So we're trying to figure out if the driver was just confused or if there was some other factor that caused this. But we'll look into, with wrong way drivers, we're going to look at everything that could possibly have happened to cause a driver to drive in the wrong direction.
Obviously, we see a lot of these on the freeways around here, but is this particular area, have you seen any sort of more problems here?
You know, I can't speak for this specific area. I would have to go back and look at past collisions and things like that. Anywhere we have transitions, you know, that's where we tend to see some of these type of wrong ways. We just saw one earlier this last week that happened on the stack. So, you know, again, we're going to investigate. We're going to try and get answers for it, but that can take a little while. We have to interview people, talk to other people, talk to the witnesses, because we did receive calls. So they saw something. We're going to talk to them and see what information we can get from them as well.
How challenging is it to trace back the start of these wrong-way crashes? I mean, in this case, it sounds like you have some witnesses, but kind of trying to piece together where they started going wrong.
Well, this is where the public is really, really helpful for us. And this is one of the things we ask the public to do if they see a wrong way driver, is call it in immediately so they can help us track it as it's going, so we can deploy our resources there better. When they call in, it is going to be easier for us to go back and talk to them and see what they saw, and it help us piece it back together. If we hadn't received any reports and just received the crash, it'd be really hard for us to figure it out.
What's the speed limit here? Any idea? Too early to tell how fast vehicles were going?
Yeah, we can't determine speed right now. That's something that's not going to happen soon.
Any idea of approximate ages of the wrong way driver or the other?
All I can say is the wrong way driver appears to be an older male. I don't have an age. And the first vehicle that he struck, the white sedan head on, that driver appears to be younger. So we'll be able to provide ages and things like that once we've determined identity.
Were any of the drivers ejected from their vehicle?
Both drivers remained in their vehicle. So unfortunately, this is a head-on collision, and it's a tragic situation. I mean, our hearts go out to the families. Two people are not going to go home to their families tonight. Our hearts are with them. We hope to get them answers as to what happened.